Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive aftermath of Willow Tate's dramatic release from Pentonville and the tangled web of betrayal, manipulation, and forbidden romance that threatens to consume everyone in Port Charles. The stakes have never been higher as alliances shift like sand beneath the characters' feet, and the once clear lines between hero and villain blur into shades of moral ambiguity that would make even the most seasoned soap opera veteran gasp in disbelief. Willow Tate's sudden freedom comes wrapped in a prison of her own making as the young mother grapples with the devastating revelation that Michael Corinthos, the man she once trusted implicitly, may have engineered her entire downfall with calculated precision that would make his mob boss father proud. Before her incarceration, Willow found herself inexplicably drawn into Drew Cain's orbit, a complicated dance of redemption and manipulation where every step forward seemed to lead 3 steps back into the murky waters of confusion and conflicting emotions. Her conversations with Elizabeth Baldwin revealed the heartbreaking truth that her reconciliation with Drew was never born from genuine affection or rekindled romance, but rather from a desperate mother's primal need to reclaim her rightful place in the lives of her children, Wiley and Amelia, who had become pawns in a game far beyond their innocent comprehension. The jailhouse walls may have contained her physical presence, but they amplified her mental anguish, getting her countless hours to replay every conversation, every suspicious glance, every moment that now seemed tainted with Michael's potential treachery. Willow's mind, once filled with maternal love and hope, now churns with dark theories about how deep Michael's betrayal might run, wondering if his decision to push her away was part of an elaborate scheme to gain full custody and erase her from the Corinthos family narrative forever. This devastating epiphany has fundamentally altered her perception of reality, transforming her from a woman seeking forgiveness to a warrior mother prepared to fight for her children using whatever means necessary, even if it means burning bridges she once thought unbreakable. Drew Cain stands at a dangerous crossroads, his reputation as Port Charles's perpetual bachelor and master manipulator hanging in the balance as he watches Willow's attitude shift from cautious gratitude to cold independence. The chemistry that once crackled between them, born from shared trauma and mutual desperation, now threatens to fizzle into nothingness as Willow's newfound distrust of Michael bleeds into her perception of all men who have wronged her. Drew's specialty has always been identifying vulnerability and transforming it into opportunity, but Willow's evolution from damsel in distress to formidable adversary may have caught him completely off guard, forcing him to recalibrate his entire strategy lest he find himself isolated and powerless in the cutthroat world of Port Charles power dynamics. If Willow officially cuts ties with Drew, the ripple effects will cascade through every corner of the community, creating power vacuums and unexpected opportunities that the town's most ambitious residents will be eager to exploit. Drew's romantic history reads like a who's who of Port Charles's most complicated women, each relationship leaving a trail of broken hearts, shattered trust, and unanswered questions that continue to haunt the hallways of General Hospital. His pattern of moving from one high-stakes romance to another suggests that a post-Willow period would barely last a commercial break before he's entangled in someone else's drama, using his charm, influence, and considerable resources to weave himself into the fabric of another woman's life, whether she welcomes his attention or not. Nina Reeves emerges as the most likely candidate for Drew's next romantic misadventure, despite the mountain of baggage, betrayal, and familial destruction that stands between them like a monument to their worst decisions. The revelation of Nina's steamy affair with Drew didn't just break Willow's trust, it shattered the fragile family bonds that Nina had spent years trying to forge, reducing her relationship with her daughter to rubble and leaving her more isolated than ever before. Some members of the Port Charles community believed Nina would sacrifice anything, including her own dignity, to rebuild the bridge to Willow, engaging in groveling apologies and grand gestures that might win back even the most hardened heart through sheer persistence and visible repentance. Yet another, more cynical faction of the town's gossip circles whispers that Nina's moral compass already cracked beyond repair, might lead her down an even darker path by reigniting the forbidden flame with Drew. Consequences be damned. The idea seems preposterous on the surface. How could any mother consciously choose the man who helped destroy her relationship with her own daughter? But those who know Nina understand that her self-destructive patterns run deeper than maternal instinct, often leading her to choose passion over principle in moments of weakness. The magnetic pull between Nina and Drew wasn't just physical, it was rooted in shared ambition, mutual understanding of what it means to be the town pariah, and a connection that defied logical explanation, making it dangerously easy for them to fall back into old habits with the right combination of loneliness and opportunity. The corporate battlefield at Aurora Media provides the perfect backdrop for another potential Drew romance, as Jacinda Bracken's growing involvement with Michael Corinthos creates a love triangle with enough voltage to power the entire eastern seaboard. Their Pretty Woman-inspired storyline, complete with power imbalances, hidden agendas, and undeniable chemistry, has captivated viewers who see in Jacinda a woman torn between genuine affection for Michael and the survival instincts that have guided her through a lifetime of difficult choices. However, seasoned Port Charles observers recognize the telltale signs of a relationship built on shifting sand, where today's passion becomes tomorrow's regret, especially when a master manipulator like Drew begins working behind the scenes to dismantle whatever happiness Michael might find. Drew's expertise in psychological warfare makes Jacinda the perfect target for his particular brand of seduction and coercion, as he carefully studies her vulnerabilities, ambitions, and secret desires with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. The corporate world they inhabit runs on information, leverage, and the constant threat of exposure, giving Drew countless opportunities to gather the kind of ammunition that could make Jacinda question everything she thinks she knows about Michael, herself, and her place in the cutthroat hierarchy of Port Charles business. By planting seeds of doubt, manufacturing crises that only he can solve, and positioning himself as both confidant and savior, Drew could systematically dismantle Jacinda's loyalty to Michael, replacing it with a dependency so complete that betraying the Corinthos heir would feel less like a choice and more like an inevitability. The possibility of Drew resorting to outright blackmail to force Jacinda into a relationship represents the darkest timeline, yet one that fits perfectly within his established pattern of using leverage to achieve his romantic and professional objectives. Imagine Drew discovering Jacinda's hidden past, a secret so devastating that its exposure would destroy everything she's built, then offering his silence in exchange for her companionship and cooperation in his campaign against Michael. This twisted quid pro quo would transform their relationship into a gilded cage, where Jacinda's physical presence masks her emotional imprisonment, creating a storyline rich with psychological complexity, moral degradation, and the kind of soapy goodness that keeps fans theorizing for weeks. Portia Robinson's complicated life provides yet another avenue for Drew's manipulative tendencies to flourish, especially given his history of using her secrets as currency in the power markets of Port Charles. The good doctor's affair with Isaiah Gannon simmers beneath the surface of her seemingly stable marriage to Curtis Ashford, a ticking time bomb of infidelity that could detonate at any moment and destroy multiple families in the process. Drew's intelligence network, built from years of cultivating sources and collecting favors, makes it highly probable that he already suspects or knows about Portia's indiscretion. Biding his time until the moment is right to deploy this information for maximum personal gain. Should Drew confirm the details of Portia's betrayal, he would wield that knowledge like a surgeon's scalpel, making precise cuts into her peace of mind until she complies with his every whim. The ultimate humiliation, forcing Portia into a public relationship with him while she carries Curtis's child, would serve multiple purposes in Drew's warped worldview. It would punish Curtis for past slights, establish Drew's dominance over another powerful woman in town, and provide him with a twisted form of revenge against the Corinthos family through their extended network of alliances. Portia would face an impossible choice: protect her affair with Isaiah and maintain her professional reputation by playing along with Drew's sick charade, or come clean to Curtis and face the complete destruction of her marriage, her family, and her standing in the medical community. The psychological toll on Portia would be immense as she struggles to explain to Isaiah why she's suddenly appearing on Drew's arm at the Metro Court, attending social functions as his date, and allowing the world to believe she's abandoned her marriage for another man. Isaiah, caught between his genuine feelings for Portia and his professional ethics, would be forced to watch from the shadows as the woman he loves navigates a nightmare of Drew's creation, powerless to intervene without exposing their own forbidden connection. The medical community at General Hospital would buzz with speculation, patients would question Portia's judgment, and her daughter Trina would be caught in the crossfire of her mother's impossible situation, creating a domino effect of consequences that demonstrates Drew's ability to weaponize a single secret into community-wide chaos. As these multiple storylines converge, General Hospital stands poised to deliver the kind of sweeping, interconnected drama that defines its legacy, where one character's decision ripples outward to touch everyone from the highest echelons of power to the most vulnerable residents seeking nothing more than a peaceful life. The battle lines being drawn aren't just about romance, they're about control, loyalty, and the lengths people will go to protect what they hold dear, even when that protection requires them to become the very monster they once feared. Willow's transformation, Nina's potential backsliding, Jacinda's looming betrayal, and Portia's impossible dilemma all circle back to Cain, the common denominator whose ambition and emotional unavailability make him the perfect catalyst for the kind of spectacular destruction that keeps viewers glued to their screens, counting down the minutes until the next shocking revelation turns everything they thought they knew upside down. Next, we will learn about the issue that has been keeping Port Charles on edge for weeks now, the mysterious disappearance of Anna Devane and the mounting terror that her absence might signal. Something far more sinister than a simple WSB assignment. The normally unflappable super spy has vanished without the usual protocol of check-ins, coded messages, or emergency contacts, leaving a trail of anxiety that stretches from the bustling halls of the Metro Court to the shadowy corridors of the WSB's remaining operational facilities. What began as a routine explanation about following a lead connected to the disgraced intelligence organization has metastasized into a full-blown crisis of identity, loyalty, and survival, with those closest to her grappling with a terrible suspicion that the Anna they know may never return unchanged. The concern radiating through Port Charles has become palpable, manifesting in hushed conversations and urgent phone calls that disrupt the normally steady rhythms of daily life. Robert Scorpio, Anna's ex-husband and longtime partner in countless dangerous operations, has been burning through his network of contacts with increasing desperation, each dead end intensifying the worry lines etched into his face. His attempts to maintain a brave front for Robin and Emma crumble each time his phone remains silent. The absence of Anna's signature-coded check-in texts creating a void that grows more ominous with each passing hour. Meanwhile, Felicia Jones has taken to pacing the length of her apartment at odd hours, her investigative instincts screaming that the official story doesn't align with Anna's meticulous nature, while Max Scorpio has begun reviewing decades of WSB case files, searching for patterns that might explain this unprecedented silence. Even Jordan Ashford, who has navigated her own complex relationship with the legendary spy, finds herself staring at her phone during commission meetings, expecting a message that never arrives. The professional courtesy Anna always extended now conspicuously absent. The official narrative that Anna departed to chase a critical lead tied to the WSB's darkest secrets has begun to unravel under scrutiny like a cheap sweater, revealing threads of inconsistency that those who know her best cannot ignore. Anna Devane has never been one to abandon protocol, regardless of how urgent the mission. Her training dictates redundant communication channels, dead drops, and emergency signals that would alert her allies without compromising her position. The fact that none of these fail-safes have been activated suggests either a catastrophic operational failure or a deliberate choice to go dark, neither of which fits the Anna they know. The WSB's current fractured state, still reeling from the exposure of its most corrupt elements, would typically demand even greater caution, not the reckless solo pursuit Anna appears to have undertaken. Intelligence community whispers suggest the lead she supposedly followed connects to the organization's final dirty laundry, the cold storage facilities where the most dangerous mines were preserved for future exploitation, a project that was supposedly terminated after Faison's death, but may have found new life in the hands of ambitious successors. Speculation has ignited across fan communities and within Port Charles itself that Anna's return might arrive sooner than anticipated, but in a form that triggers uncanny valley discomfort rather than relief. The prevailing theory is centered on Alex Merrick, Anna's diabolical twin sister, potentially resurfacing to impersonate her estranged sibling in a scheme that would exploit their identical appearance to infiltrate the highest levels of Port Charles society. Alex's history of psychological warfare and identity theft makes her the perfect candidate for such deception, and her previous attempts to destroy Anna's life provide ample motive for another assault on her sister's existence. A more chilling hypothesis has gained traction among those who have witnessed the darkest corners of the WSB's experimentation programs, the possibility that Anna will return looking exactly like herself, bearing her memories and mannerisms, yet fundamentally altered at a core level that defies easy detection. This transformation wouldn't require a twin substitute, but rather a violation of Anna's very consciousness, potentially merging her identity with that of the city's most notorious monster. The specter of Caesar Faison looms over this entire mystery like a toxic cloud, his legacy of terror refusing to dissipate even after his documented death and the rumored preservation of his brain in a glass jar within a secret WSB laboratory. The Danish mastermind's ability to cheat death has become legendary, with multiple confirmed resurrections and near-death escapes that have made his permanent demise seem more like a temporary inconvenience than a final conclusion. Viewers watched in horror as his brain was extracted and displayed in formaldehyde, a trophy of the WSB's victory over their greatest enemy. Yet that same trophy could become the instrument of his ultimate revenge from beyond the grave. The technology to keep neural tissue viable and potentially interface it with living subjects has existed in sketch form within the organization's black budget projects for decades. Theoretical frameworks that could transform a preserved brain into a control mechanism for an unwilling host. Modern advances in neural mapping, combined with the WSB's unrestricted research parameters before its collapse, suggest the nightmare scenario of Faison's consciousness influencing or dominating a living vessel is no longer the stuff of science fiction, but a terrifying possibility waiting for the right moment to activate. The mysterious project apparently underway, potentially orchestrated by the shadowy Jen Sidwell with assistance from an unidentified figure in the background, has all the hallmarks of Faison's grandiose scheming, even if the puppet master himself remains physically deceased. Sidwell's sudden appearance in Port Charles and his suspicious knowledge of WSB protocols has raised red flags across the intelligence community, particularly his interest in the organization's legacy experiments and abandoned research facilities. The unidentified partner in his operation could be anyone, a former WSB scientist who refused to abandon the work, a rival spy agency looking to weaponize the research, or something far more unnatural. The brain in the jar, whether it truly belongs to Faison or represents a decoy designed to misdirect investigators, serves as the perfect MacGuffin for a plot that seeks to weaponize the dead against the living. The theoretical mechanism would involve neural grafting, where preserved brain tissue interfaces with a host's neural pathways, potentially overwriting or merging with the victim's personality to create a hybrid entity capable of carrying out the donor's will. This represents not merely the memory mapping experiments that have been rumored within the intelligence community, but something exponentially more horrifying, the literal resurrection of a malevolent will through technological possession. The process would theoretically involve implanting microelectrodes that bridge the preserved neural tissue with the host's living brain, creating feedback loops that reinforce the donor's thought patterns and suppress the victim's native personality. Over time, the host would become a passenger in their own body, watching helplessly as their skills, memories, and relationships are weaponized to serve a dead madman's final vengeance. The Faison personality, with its singular obsession with destroying the Spencer and Scorpio families, would systematically dismantle everything Anna has built, using her intimate knowledge of her loved one's weaknesses to inflict maximum psychological damage before the physical destruction begins. Every security protocol she knows, every safe house location, every emergency contact method would become a weapon in Faison's spectral hands, turning Port Charles into a hunting ground where the predator wears the face of their most trusted protector. If Anna does return to Port Charles in the coming weeks, those who know her best will likely experience the same creeping dread that has infected interactions with Nathan West, whose recent behavior has struck many as slightly off, as if a fundamental aspect of his personality has been recalibrated without his knowledge. The parallel is deliberate and troubling Nathan's subtle shifts in temperament, his occasional uncharacteristic coldness, his newfound obsession with certain cases that align suspiciously with old WSB priorities all suggest he may be an early test subject for the same technology potentially being deployed against Anna. Her return would likely amplify these concerns exponentially, as those who love her notice micro-expressions that don't quite match her emotional state, conversational patterns that feel rehearsed rather than spontaneous, and a disturbing fixation on objectives that serve no logical purpose in her current caseload. The Anna they know would never prioritize the prosecution of Professor Henry Hank Dalton with the obsessive zeal that this altered version might display, nor would she manipulate Rocco Falconeri and his siblings as pawns in a larger game without showing the moral conflict that has always defined her character. The Dalton case itself represents a perfect entry point for Faison's influence to manifest through Anna, as it involves young, vulnerable members of Port Charles families and could create cascading chaos through the community's protective networks. Hank Dalton's mysterious connection to the WSB's training programs has remained frustratingly opaque, but Anna's supposed investigation into his death has already begun to create fissures between the Falconeri family and their allies. A Faison-controlled Anna would exploit this case to isolate the children, gather intelligence on their guardians' vulnerabilities, and potentially set them up for elimination or recruitment into a new generation of operatives loyal to a dead man's vision. The obsession with seeing Dalton's version of justice served, particularly if it involves incarcerating teenagers who represent the future of Port Charles' most prominent families, would be completely out of character for the Anna who has spent decades protecting the innocent, even when they make terrible mistakes. The critical question haunting Robert's sleepless nights and Knack's investigative digging is whether Anna herself would retain any awareness of the violation being perpetrated against her. Consciousness. Would she experience the horror of watching her body betray everything she stands for, screaming silently as her hands sign warrants she knows are unjust? Her voice delivers ultimatums she would never endorse, and her eyes those windows to her soul grow cold and calculating, or would the process consume her entirely, leaving only fragments of Anna's memories as tools for Faison's agenda, her essential self erased like a corrupted file? The psychological torture of retaining awareness while losing control represents a fate worse than death for someone who has defined herself through autonomy and moral certainty, transforming her into the ultimate weapon against those she loves most. Her expertise in resisting interrogation and psychological manipulation might provide some internal defense, but Faison's methods were always uniquely insidious, designed to exploit the very qualities that make Anna heroic: her loyalty, her protective instincts, her relentless pursuit of justice. The potential for reversal and recovery must exist, or else Port Charles faces an apocalyptic loss of its moral center, a transformation that would fundamentally break the community's spirit. If Faison's cold fusion project truly can rewrite personalities and install foreign consciousness into beloved heroes. Then the show risks permanent damage to characters who represent decades of audience investment. The narrative demands a savior capable of understanding the science, accessing the facilities, and possessing the emotional fortitude to fight for Anna's true self when even she cannot. Britt Westburn emerges as the most logical and emotionally resonant candidate for this heroic role. Despite her complicated history and former alliance with the very evil threatening to consume Port Charles. As Faison's daughter, Britt possesses unique insight into his methodologies, his scientific partnerships, and the psychological triggers that might disrupt the neural bridge controlling Anna. Her medical expertise, particularly in cutting-edge neurological procedures she witnessed during her time with the WSP's medical division, provides the technical foundation necessary to reverse the process. Britt's access to Sidwell's operation, gained through reluctant cooperation that has allowed her to protect Maxie and James from her father's lingering influence, positions her as the only insider who might sabotage the experiment from within. She has demonstrated the courage to confront Sidwell directly, leveraging her knowledge of his own vulnerabilities and her willingness to become a whistleblower if he pushes too far into the territory that threatens her makeshift family. If Anna returns as Faison's puppet, Britt would recognize the signs, the subtle vocal inflections, the specific phrases that echo her father's speech patterns, the strategic priorities that serve his obsessions rather than Anna's investigative style. Her motivation to save Anna extends beyond professional duty. It represents Britt's final rejection of her father's legacy, the ultimate proof that she has broken free from the cycle of villainy he designed for her. The confrontation would likely occur within Sidwell's hidden facility, where Britt must outmaneuver armed guards, disable neural interface machinery, and perform an emergency neurosurgical procedure to sever the connection before Faison's consciousness fully overwrites Anna's identity. The resolution of this arc will likely involve a ticking clock scenario where Britt races against time as Anna under Faison's control closes in on her first major target, possibly setting a trap for Robert or preparing to eliminate Maxie as revenge for Britt's betrayal. The surgical intervention would be fraught with peril, requiring Britt to make split-second decisions about which neural pathways to sever and which to preserve, literally holding Anna's personality in her hands as she works to excise the malignant influence. Success would come at a cost, perhaps temporary memory loss, psychological trauma requiring extensive recovery, or a permanent psychic scar that leaves Anna vulnerable to future incursions. However, it would also cement Britt's transformation into a true hero of Port Charles, redeeming her past crimes through an act of salvation that only she could perform. The aftermath would ripple through relationships, with Anna struggling to trust her own mind, Robert torn between gratitude and rage at what was stolen from his partner, and Britt finally earning the forgiveness she has long sought from those who once considered her irredeemable. As this devastating plot unfolds, viewers should prepare for shocking reveals about the true extent of WSB's legacy experiments, the identity of the mysterious partner assisting Sidwell, and the possibility that Anna is merely the first of several beloved characters targeted for similar transformation. The brain in Faison's jar may represent only one preserved consciousness in a library of villains waiting for digital resurrection, suggesting Port Charles could face an invasion of the dead wearing the faces of their protectors. The psychological horror of watching Anna Devane, the city's moral compass, become its greatest internal threat provides the kind of character-driven terror that defines General Hospital's most memorable storylines. Whether Britt's intervention comes in time, whether Anna's true self can be fully restored, and whether the technology can be destroyed before it claims more victims will determine the future stability of the entire community. The war for Anna's soul is about to begin, and the casualties may include the trust and safety that have taken decades to build in Port Charles.